The arena dome stretched 300 meters across, its walls shimmering with energy shields and scanning technology. Park stood in the observation deck, her hands pressed against the transparent barrier as she watched another cadet demonstrate combat skills below. The cadet was nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms that moved in perfect coordination. Each strike with the plasma rifle was textbook perfect, exactly as the training manuals described. Had been at the Galactic Military Academy for 6 months now, and she still felt like an outsider. Around her stood cadets from dozens of different worlds. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 12 years ago, and getting into this academy was nearly impossible for humans. Only 12 had made it this year, was one of them. She glanced to her right where Wu stood watching the same demonstration. He was her only real friend here, another human from Earth's Defense Corps. He caught her eye and gave a small shrug. They both knew what the other was thinking. This technique was perfect, but it was also completely predictable. Every move followed the standard form. The demonstration ended and the instructors called for the next group. Her stomach tightened. She walked down the stairs to the arena floor with 5 other cadets. Wu was among them, along with 2 who moved with incredible speed, a massive whose telepathic abilities made him dangerous in combat, and a crystalline being whose name could barely pronounce. Instructor stood at the center of the arena, his frame towering over all of them. His 4 eyes scanned the group with what had learned to recognize as mild disapproval. He particularly seemed to dislike the human cadets. "Today's exercise is weapon transition," announced, his voice booming across the arena. "You will move through the obstacle course. At each station you will find a different weapon. Pick it up, neutralize the target, move forward. Speed and accuracy are both measured. The scanners will evaluate your combat efficiency." Notice the thousands of tiny sensors embedded in the arena walls. They tracked everything, measuring reaction times down to microseconds, analyzing fighting styles, classifying threat levels. Every species had a classification, were marked as high-threat heavy assault, were speed-based strikers. Humans were classified as adaptable generalists with moderate threat ratings. The exercise began. The cadets blurred through the course so fast could barely track them. They moved slower but predicted where targets would appear before they materialized. The crystalline being absorbed energy weapons and reflected them back. Wu went next. He was decent, better than most humans, but could see him struggling with the designed weapons. They were built for 4-armed users, and adapting them for 2 arms was awkward. He reached the 3rd station, grabbed a plasma rifle that was nearly as long as he was tall, and tried to pivot for a shot. The weapon slipped. Saw it happen in slow motion. The rifle was too heavy for a one-handed grip, and Wu had tried to turn too fast. It tumbled from his hands, spinning toward the ground where it would discharge and fail him on the exercise. She didn't think, she just moved. Was supposed to be in the observation position, 10 meters away from the course. But she crossed that distance in seconds, her hand shooting out to catch the falling weapon. Her fingers closed around the grip just as it was about to hit the floor. Then everything went wrong. The weapon's energy signature spiked. Felt it vibrate in her hand, the plasma coils humming with sudden intensity. Every scanner in the arena activated at once. Alarms began blaring, a harsh sound that made everyone freeze. Red lights flooded the dome. The massive display screen above the arena flickered. Words appeared in letters 3 meters tall. Combat pattern, unclassified. Threat assessment, RECLIBRATING. Warning, anomalous biological response, DETCTD. Stared at the screen, her hand still gripping the weapon. Around the arena, cadets from a dozen species stood motionless, watching her. The instructors were shouting into communicators. The administrator, Commander Isa, appeared at the observation deck railing, her telepathic presence pressing against mind like a question she couldn't hear. "Put down the weapon," commanded, moving toward her carefully as if she might explode. Slowly placed the plasma rifle on the ground. The alarm stopped, but the red lights continued pulsing. The screen still displayed that word, unclassified. "What did you do?" asked, his 4 eyes fixed on her. "I just caught it," said, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. "Wu dropped it and I caught it." "No one has ever triggered an unclassified reading," another instructor said, unnamed. She was studying her scanner device, her antenna twitching with agitation. "The system has classification patterns for every known species. Humans are classified. You should have registered as a standard human combat response." "But she didn't," Commander Isa said, descending from the observation deck. The moved with liquid grace, her long limbs carrying her across the arena floor. She stopped in front of, her large black eyes reflecting the red warning lights. The scanner detected something it has never seen before, a combat pattern with no classification. Felt hundreds of eyes on her. Cadets whispered to each other. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. A group of cadets near the back were laughing, probably assuming the human had broken something. "I didn't mean to cause a problem," said. "Intention is irrelevant," Commander Isa replied. "The scanners do not make mistakes. If they classified you as unknown, then your combat response fell outside all established parameters." She paused, her telepathic presence growing stronger, felt the edge of a thought. Interesting, dangerous, unknown. "Report to Medical Wing 3 for testing," Commander Isa ordered. "Immediately." "Am I in trouble?" asked. "We don't know yet," said, and for the first time heard something other than disapproval in his voice. It sounded like curiosity, or maybe concern. 2 security personnel appeared at her side. They weren't hostile, but they clearly weren't going to let her refuse. Walked between them toward the exit, her mind racing. She had just caught a weapon. That was all. How could that possibly trigger a system-wide alert? As she passed Wu, he reached out and grabbed her arm. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." "It's fine," she said quickly. "Not your fault." But as she left the arena, she heard the whispers spreading. By tomorrow, everyone in the academy would know. A human broke the classification system. A human registered as unclassified. Had spent 6 months trying to blend in, trying to prove that humans belonged here. And now, with one instinctive movement, she had done the opposite. She had become the thing every species feared. An unknown variable. The corridor to the medical wing seemed longer than usual. Her security escorts said nothing, their faces unreadable. Through windows, she could see other parts of the station, cadets training in zero-gravity chambers, instructors giving tactical lectures, ships coming and going from the docking bays. This was supposed to be her future. The Galactic Military Academy accepted only the best from each species. Getting in had been a dream since Earth joined the galactic community. And now she might lose it all because of one moment, one reaction, one catch. She touched her hand, the one that had gripped the weapon. It felt normal. She felt normal. But somewhere in the Academy's vast computer system, an algorithm had looked at her and found something it had never seen before. Something that didn't fit any pattern, any classification, any known response. And didn't know if that made her special, or if it made her a threat that would need to be removed. The testing room was white and empty except for a chair in the center. Had been sitting in it for 3 hours while machines scanned her from every angle. The scientist watched from behind a transparent barrier, making notes on a device that floated beside her. This was day 2 of testing. Day 1 had been physical examinations. They had measured her reflexes, her muscle response, her neural patterns. They had taken samples of everything from blood to hair, had answered the same questions 100 times. No, she had no genetic modifications. No, she had never been exposed to alien technology before joining the academy. No, there was nothing special about her family background. She was just a regular human from Seoul who had scored high enough on the entrance exams to get accepted. That was supposed to be the whole story. "We're ready for the next test," said through the speaker system. A panel in the wall slid open and a mechanical arm extended, holding a blade weapon. It was designed for their six-fingered hands, curved in a way that looked awkward for human grip. "Pick it up and show me how you would use it," instructed. Stood and took the weapon. It was light, balanced for speed rather than power. Her fingers didn't fit the grip properly, but she adjusted, shifting her hold until it felt natural. Then she moved through a basic attack pattern. "Stop," said. "What are you doing?" "Showing you how I'd use it," replied, confused. "No, you're showing me 17 different ways you would use it," pointed at her screen. "Look at your neural scan. Every time you touch a weapon, your brain doesn't process it as a single tool. You're simultaneously cataloging it as a blade, a throwing weapon, a lever, a climbing tool, a shield component. You're redesigning it in real time." Looked at the weapon in her hand. She hadn't been aware she was doing anything unusual. "Isn't that what everyone does?" "No," said flatly. "A picks up this blade and thinks blade. Their neural pattern shows weapon recognition and combat form activation. That's all. You pick it up and your brain shows weapon recognition, improvisational analysis, environmental integration, threat reassessment, and tool modification pathways all firing simultaneously." The blade was taken away and replaced with a plasma rifle, then an energy whip, then a projectile weapon from a species had never heard of. Each time, the same result. Her brain treated every weapon as dozens of possibilities instead of one defined tool. By day 3, they brought in other scientists. A military analyst stood beside, reviewing the data with increasing concern. "This explains the unclassified reading," he said. "Our classification system works by identifying predictable patterns. We'll use weapons for speed attacks, for power strikes, for precision. But humans, or at least this human, don't have a primary pattern. She adapts the weapon to the situation rather than using it as designed." "All humans do this?" asked. "We need to test more of them," the replied. That afternoon, they brought in Wu. Hadn't seen him since the arena incident, and he looked worried as they led him into the observation room. They ran him through the same tests. The results were nearly identical to's. Then they brought in 2 more human cadets, Lee, and same results. "It's not just her," said, her antenna drooping with what had learned meant confusion in. "It's all of them. Humans don't use weapons as designed. They improvise with them." "This is a problem," the analyst said. Commander Issa arrived on day 4. The administrator dismissed the other scientists and sat across from in the testing room. For a long moment she said nothing, just let her telepathic presence wash over thoughts. It felt like being read, but gently. "You don't understand why this matters," Commander Issa finally said. "I know it's unusual," replied carefully. "But is it really that dangerous? We're just being creative with tools." "Creativity is unpredictable," Commander Issa said. "The galactic military operates on predictability. We have protocols for every situation. We know how each species fights, how they think, how they respond to threats. This allows us to coordinate across hundreds of different species without chaos." She stood and walked to the window overlooking the station. Humans were controversial when Earth applied to join the Academy. Many species argued against it. They said your species was too young, too chaotic, too violent. Earth's history is full of warfare, of species fighting itself. We don't have that in our past. Most species reached space through cooperation. Had heard this before. Humanity's bloody history was always mentioned, always held against them. But some of us argued that humanity's diversity was a strength, Commander Issa continued. That your ability to work with difference could help bridge the gaps between species. So we allowed 12 humans to enter the Academy, a test run. She turned back to, And now, 6 months in, we discover that humans can't be classified, that you fight in ways our systems can't predict. This frightens people. We're not trying to be scary, said. I know, but consider it from our perspective. We have weapons designed for specific purposes. A plasma rifle has 3 settings and 5 firing modes. Every species uses it within those parameters. But you pick it up and within seconds you're thinking of ways to modify it, to use it for purposes it wasn't designed for, to combine it with other equipment in ways the manufacturers never intended. Commander Issa pulled up a holographic display showing neural scans. When you caught that weapon in the arena, do you know what you were thinking? Shook her head. Your brain registered it as a falling object but simultaneously calculated its weight distribution, its energy capacity, its potential as a thrown weapon, as a club, as a power source for other equipment, and as a standard firearm. All of this in the half-second before you caught it. The scanner saw combat potential it had never encountered. Hence, unclassified. So what happens now? Asked. Commander Issa closed the holographic display. That depends. There are those on the military council who want all human cadets removed. They believe you're too unpredictable to integrate into galactic forces. But there are others, like myself, who see potential. Wars are not won by predictability. They're won by adaptation. She leaned forward. I'm proposing a test, a field exercise that will determine humanity's future at this academy. You will select 4 other human cadets. You will face a scenario designed to challenge your adaptive abilities. If you succeed using your human methods, you prove your worth. If you fail, or if your methods prove too chaotic, all humans will be removed from the military program. His throat felt tight. That's a lot of pressure. Yes, Commander Issa agreed. But I've reviewed Earth's history. Humans seem to perform best under pressure. When is this test? Asked. 2 weeks. I suggest you choose your team carefully and prepare however you see fit. But understand this, Cadet Park. The entire galaxy will be watching. Some will want you to succeed. Many will want you to fail. And how you perform will determine not just your future but humanity's place among the stars. After Commander Issa left, Wu was allowed into the testing room. He sat beside, both of them quiet for a moment. So we broke the galaxy's classification system, he said finally. Apparently, replied. And now we have to prove we're not too dangerous to keep around. That about covers it. Wu laughed, but it was a nervous sound. I joined the academy to be normal, to fit in, to show that humans could be just like everyone else. Me too, admitted. But we're not like everyone else, are we? Wu said. We can't think the way they think. We can't use tools the way they use tools. We improvise. We adapt. We break things to see what else they can be. Looked at her hands, the same hands that had caught a weapon and triggered an alarm heard across the entire station. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe, Wu said. Or maybe it gets us all sent back to Earth in disgrace. 2 weeks to find out, said. She thought about the test ahead, about choosing a team, about facing a challenge designed specifically to measure human unpredictability. The smart thing would be to play it safe, to follow protocol, to prove humans could operate within established systems. But something told her that wasn't what Commander Issa wanted. The had said wars were won by adaptation, not predictability. She had given humans a chance to show what they could do when they stopped trying to fit in and started being themselves. Just hoped that being themselves was enough. Choosing the team took less time than expected. There were only 12 humans at the academy, and she knew them all by now. They stuck together, ate together, trained together. Being the only species that couldn't be classified created an automatic bond. She picked Wu first. He was an engineer, the kind of person who looked at broken equipment and saw opportunities instead of problems. During training exercises, he had once rewired a damaged communications device into a makeshift scanner. The instructors had marked him down for improper equipment use, but it had worked. Lee was next. He was a pilot, one of the best in their class, but what made him special was his spatial awareness. He could navigate three-dimensional combat environments while other species were still figuring out which way was up. He thought in movement, in flow, in the space between obstacles. Was the third choice. She was training as a medic, but her background was in psychological operations. She could read people, understand motivations, find the pressure points in any situation. In simulations, she had talked hostile forces into surrendering more often than she had actually fought them. The last choice was harder. Needed someone who could handle direct combat, someone strong and experienced. That meant Minyu. He was older than the rest of them, former Earth military, and built like he had been training his entire life. He specialized in heavy weapons and had the scars to prove he knew how to use them. But Minyu was also stubborn. He didn't like taking orders from someone younger, and he made no secret of thinking the academy was too soft compared to real combat. Found him in the training center, running through weapon drills with an intensity that made other cadets give him space. "I need you for the team," she said without preamble. Minyu finished his drill before looking at her. Sweat ran down his face and his breathing was heavy. "The test everyone's talking about." "Yes." "Why me?" "Because you're the best combat specialist we have," said. "And because if this goes wrong, I want someone who won't panic." He studied her for a long moment. "You know they're setting us up to fail, right? This test isn't about proving we're good enough. It's about proving we're too dangerous." "Maybe," admitted. "But Commander Issa wouldn't have offered the test if she wanted us to fail. She wants to see what we can do." "What we can do is improvise and break rules," Minyu said. "That's what makes them nervous." "Then maybe we should lean into that," replied. Minyu smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. "All right, I'm in, but when this goes sideways, I'm blaming you." The team had 2 weeks to prepare, but they weren't told anything about the actual test scenario. Just that it would be a peacekeeping operation and they should train with standard equipment. So they did. They ran drills in the combat simulators. They practiced room clearing, hostage rescue protocols, equipment failures, communication breakdowns. But every time they followed the standard procedures, something felt wrong. Could see it in the way Wu kept glancing at equipment he wanted to modify, in the way he tried to follow the prescribed movement patterns, but his body wanted to flow differently, in the way he gave the textbook responses to simulated hostiles, but clearly thought she could do better. They were trying to fight like everyone else, and it wasn't working. On day 5, word spread through the academy that a group of cadets were openly mocking the human team. Heard about it from another cadet, a friendly named who felt bad for the humans. "They're saying you only got the test opportunity because Commander Issa feels sorry for your primitive species," said quietly. "Their leader acts, he's telling everyone that humans are unclassified because you have no real combat form, that you fight like animals." Felt her jaw tighten. "Thanks for telling me." That afternoon, she found Axe in the central commons with his group. He was massive even by standards, with scars across all 4 arms that marked him as a veteran of actual combat before joining the academy. He saw approaching and smiled in a way that showed all his teeth. "The unclassified human," he said loudly enough for everyone in the commons to hear. "Come to learn some proper combat form. Come to ask you to stop spreading rumors about my team," said, keeping her voice level. "Rumors? I speak only truth. Your species has no discipline, no proper technique. You improvise because you lack the intelligence to master real combat systems." His friends laughed and cadets from other species stopped to watch. Knew she should walk away. Getting into a confrontation would only make things worse, but she could feel the eyes on her, could hear the whispers. If she backed down now, it would confirm what Axe was saying, that humans were inferior. If you really believe that, she said carefully, then you wouldn't mind proving it. Sanctioned duel, you and me. The commons went silent. Axe's smile faded. A sanctioned duel was serious. It was overseen by instructors, counted toward combat rankings, and could result in injuries severe enough to require medical suspension. You challenge me, Axe said, his four eyes narrowing. Unless you're afraid, replied. That did it. Axe's pride wouldn't let him back down from a challenge issued in front of dozens of witnesses. Tomorrow, main arena, I accept. Walked away before her hands could start shaking. What had she just done? Axe had actual combat experience. He was twice her size, had 4 arms instead of 2, and had been training in combat form since childhood. She was going to get destroyed. Wu found her an hour later in the empty observation deck. I heard about the duel. Are you insane? Probably, said. You can't beat him. He's going to crush you. I know. Then why did you challenge him? Stared out at the stars beyond the station. Because everyone is watching us. Everyone is waiting to see if humans deserve to be here. If I had walked away, it would have confirmed what they think. That we're weak, that we don't belong. And getting beaten in a duel changes that how? Wu asked. I don't know, admitted. Maybe it doesn't, but at least I tried. The next day, the main arena was packed. Word of the duel had spread, and it seemed like half the academy had shown up to watch. Stood in the preparation room, wearing the light combat armor provided for sanctioned duels. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. Instructor entered the room. You can still withdraw, no shame in it. Yes, there is, said. Not for me, but for every human here. If I withdraw, it proves Axe right. And if you lose? I was going to lose anyway, said. Might as well lose while trying. Studied her with his 4 eyes. You humans are strange. Most species would calculate the odds and make the logical choice. You seem to make the emotional choice and then find logic to support it. Is that bad? Asked. I don't know yet, replied, but it is definitely interesting. The duel was best of 5 rounds. First 2 rounds were hand-to-hand combat, lost both badly. Axe was faster than she expected and hit like a transport shuttle. She managed to land a few strikes, but they barely seemed to affect him. By the end of the second round, she had a split lip and bruised ribs. Round 3 was with weapons. Standard plasma rifles, non-lethal settings, first hit wins. This was where knew she had to do something different. She couldn't outmuscle Axe and she couldn't match his technique, so she stopped trying. The round started. Axe moved in perfect combat form, his rifle up, his movements precise and predictable. Watched him for 3 seconds, calculated the pattern, then threw her rifle at his head. The crowd gasped. Axe blocked the thrown weapon easily, but his form broke for just a moment. Was already moving, diving low and grabbing his rifle instead of going for hers. She yanked it down and to the side, using his own strength against him. The rifle discharged into the ground. Then she rolled, came up behind him, retrieved her thrown rifle and fired at his back. Hit round 2. The arena erupted in noise. Half the crowd was cheering, the other half was shouting protests. Throwing your weapon wasn't in the standard combat forms. It was improvisation, adaptation, the exact thing that made humans unclassifiable. Axe was furious. That is not proper form. The rules don't say I have to use proper form, replied, breathing hard. They say first hit wins. Round 4 was close quarters in an obstacle course. Axe won by cornering her and using his superior strength. They were tied at 2 rounds each. Final round. Full combat scenario with multiple weapons and environmental hazards. Whoever scored 3 hits first won the duel. Knew she had to use everything now. All the improvisation, all the adaptation, all the unpredictable chaos that made scanners flag her as unclassified. She didn't fight Axe. She fought the environment. She used a plasma bolt to melt a support beam, dropped debris between them. She rigged a smoke grenade to a proximity mine, created cover that moved. She climbed walls Axe couldn't reach, used angles he didn't expect, moved through the course in ways that weren't in any manual. Axe fought perfectly. Every move was textbook, every shot was precise. But perfect was predictable. Scored the first hit from above, hanging from a beam. Second hit from behind cover that she had created herself. Third hit after she baited him into an ambush by pretending to make a mistake. She won. The arena was chaos. Some cadets were cheering, others were arguing. The instructors were reviewing the footage, debating whether her methods were legal. Axe stood in the center, looking stunned. Walked over to him, extending her hand. Good fight. He stared at her hand for a long moment. Then slowly he took it. You have no form, no discipline. I know, said. And yet you won. He seemed genuinely confused. Yeah, replied, maybe that's the point. The briefing room was cold and quiet. Sat at the table with her team while Commander Isa stood at the holographic display. Around them, through observation windows, instructors from a dozen species watched. This wasn't just an academy exercise anymore. Representatives from the Galactic Military Council had arrived to observe. Even some Earth officials were present, transmitted via long-range communication. The hologram showed a space station, old and damaged. This is Station Gamma 9, Commander Isa explained. Former mining outpost, abandoned 15 years ago. 6 months ago, it was occupied by pirates. 3 weeks ago, those pirates took hostages, civilian miners who were attempting to salvage the station. She highlighted sections of the station. 17 hostages confirmed. Unknown number of pirates, estimated between 12 and 20. The station is partially damaged. Life support is failing in some sections, and the pirates have booby-trapped multiple entry points. Your mission is simple. Rescue the hostages. Neutralize the pirates. You have 4 hours from insertion to extraction. This is a full sensory simulation, meaning you will feel pain, exhaustion, and injury. If you die in the simulation, you're out. If you fail to rescue at least 75% of the hostages, you fail. If you exceed the time limit, you fail. Wu raised his hand. What's the success rate for this scenario? We've run 247 different species teams through variations of this test, Commander Isa said. Best performance was 73% hostage survival by a speed team. Most teams fail completely. The scenario is designed to be extremely difficult. So we're expected to fail, Minyu said flatly. You're expected to try, Commander Isa corrected. How you try is up to you. You have standard equipment, standard weapons, standard protocols to follow if you choose. Or you can do what humans apparently do best. Improvise. The simulation began 30 minutes later, and her team stood in the insertion pod, weapons checked, armor sealed. Through the pod window, she could see the damaged station. It looked real. The simulation technology was that good. Remember the plan, said, though they had barely made a plan. They had decided not to. Planning required knowing what they would face, and the scenario was designed to be unpredictable. Instead, they had agreed on principles. Stay flexible. Use what's available. Don't follow protocol if it doesn't make sense. The pod docked with a harsh clang, overrode the airlock, and they entered the station. The air was thin, barely breathable. Emergency lights flickered. The whole place felt dead. Standard protocol said to advance together, clear each room systematically, maintain formation. Looked at her team and made a decision. Split up, she said. That's against protocol, Minyu pointed out. I know, do it anyway. Take medical scanner and map hostile positions. Don't engage. Find environmental controls, anything you can use. Wu, look for equipment you can repurpose. Minyu, you're with me. We'll start the rescue. They separated. Every instructor watching probably marked them down immediately. Splitting the team was basic tactical mistake number 1. but knew that together they were one predictable unit. Separated, they were 5 different problems for the pirates to solve. His voice came through the comm. I'm bouncing medical scanner signals through the walls. Not what it's designed for, but I'm getting readings. 12 hostiles confirmed, spread across 3 levels. Hostages are in central holding, but there's a trap at the main entrance. Elaborate on the trap, said, moving through a dark corridor with Minu. Looks like explosives rigged to the door mechanism. Standard breach would trigger them and kill everyone inside. Wu's voice joined in. I found a maintenance bay, lots of broken equipment. Give me 10 minutes. We might not have 10 minutes, Minu said. I'm reading life support failure in the hostage section. They've got maybe 2 hours of air. His voice crackled through. I'm at environmental controls. System is damaged, but I can work with it. What do you need? Thought fast. Can you control gravity? Partially. I can create zones of low or zero gravity in specific sections. Why? Because pirates train in normal gravity, said. We train in variable gravity at the academy, create chaos in their sections, make them slow down. On it. 10 minutes later, Wu reported back. I've got 3 maintenance drones rewired. They're loud, they move erratically, and they'll draw attention. I can send them anywhere. Send them toward the largest group of pirates, ordered. Make them think we're attacking from that direction. The plan was coming together in pieces, everyone contributing, nothing following standard protocol. And Minu reached a ventilation shaft that led near the hostage-holding area. Minu wanted to go through the main corridor. Ventilation is exposed, he argued. We'll be vulnerable. Main corridor is trapped, countered. Ventilation isn't designed for attack, so they won't expect it. They crawled through the shaft. It was tight, uncomfortable, and definitely not tactical doctrine. But it worked. They emerged in a storage room adjacent to the hostage area. Through the wall, could hear voices. Pirates arguing about what to do with the hostages. She signaled to Minu, and they moved to breach position. Then everything changed. His voice came through, urgent. New contact. One of the hostages just pulled a weapon. It's a fake hostage, a pirate infiltrator. Froze. How close to the other hostages? Right in the middle of them, and she's activating something. I think it's a reactor overload device. The station's old reactor is still partially active. Wu cut in. If that reactor goes critical, the whole station explodes. We've got maybe 8 minutes. Protocol said abort. Evacuate immediately. Save the team, write off the hostages as a loss. It was the logical choice, the safe choice. Made a different choice. Wu, can you control the reactor overload? Not remotely. I'd have to be there, and it's on the opposite side of the station. Then get there. Map him the fastest route and turn off gravity in the corridors he needs to move through. He can travel faster in 0G. What about the hostages? Asked. If Wu is controlling the reactor, who's doing the rescue? All of us, said. New plan. We don't stop the reactor, we use it. Minu looked at her like she was crazy. Use a reactor meltdown. Wu, can you control which sections of the station the overload destroys? Brief pause. Maybe, if I reroute the energy flow, but that's incredibly dangerous. Can you do it? Yes. Then do it. Collapse the corridors where the pirates are concentrated, trap them, force them into sections we control. It was the most reckless plan had ever conceived. Using a reactor meltdown as a tactical weapon went against every safety protocol in existence, but it might work. Wu reached the reactor room with 6 minutes to spare, guided him through the controls while simultaneously manipulating gravity fields to slow down pirates who were trying to intercept him. Talked to the pirates holding the hostages, using her psychological training to keep them distracted while and Minu positioned for breach. Ready, Wu said. Reactor overload in 3, 2, 1. The station shuddered. Explosions rippled through sections Wu had designated. Corridors collapsed, trapping pirates or forcing them to retreat. The chaos was perfect. And Minyu breached the hostage room. The fake hostage tried to resist, but had already convinced two of the actual hostages to help restrain her. They had turned enemies into allies just by talking. "Evacuate the hostages," ordered. "We need extraction." "Shuttle Bay is damaged," reported. "But I can pilot us out on manual override. It'll be rough." "Rough is fine, just get everyone out." They moved fast. 17 hostages, 5 team members, through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Pirates tried to intercept, but gravity fluctuations threw them off balance. Wu's maintenance drones created diversions. Every element of chaos worked in the humans' favor because chaos was where they thrived. They reached the shuttle bay with 90 seconds before the reactor went critical. The shuttle was damaged, half its systems offline, but didn't hesitate. He manually fired the engines, something no other species would risk because it required flying by instinct rather than computer assistance. The shuttle launched just as the station began its final collapse. Through the viewport, watched Gamma 9 tear itself apart in a controlled demolition that Wu had orchestrated. Every pirate was either trapped or neutralized. Every hostage was safe. They had done the impossible. The simulation ended and they found themselves back in the Academy's training facility. The room was silent. Dozens of instructors and observers stared at them through the windows. No one spoke. Commander Isa entered the debriefing room. Her face was unreadable. "You violated 17 standard procedures. You used equipment in ways specifically prohibited by safety regulations. You split your team in tactically unsound formations. You weaponized a reactor meltdown. Waited for the condemnation. By every measure of proper military doctrine," Commander Isa continued, "you should have failed catastrophically." She paused. "Instead, you achieved 100% hostage survival in half the projected time. You neutralized all hostiles with 0 team casualties. We've run 247 teams through variations of this scenario. No one has ever achieved this level of success." Through the observation window, saw instructor. He was grinning, his 4 arms crossed in what she now recognized as satisfaction. But Commander Isa's expression was still troubled. "The question remains, are you too dangerous to integrate into galactic military structures, or are you exactly what we need?" The Galactic Military Council chambers were enormous, designed to hold representatives from dozens of species. Sat in the waiting area with her team, watching through a transparent wall as the council debated their fate. She couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see the body language. Some counselors were gesturing emphatically, clearly angry. Others sat in contemplative silence. It had been 3 days since the simulation. 3 days of waiting while the council reviewed every second of footage, analyzed every decision, debated what humanity's performance meant for the future of galactic military cooperation. Wu sat beside her, bouncing his leg nervously. "They're going to reject us." "You don't know that," said, though she didn't sound convinced. "Look at them," Wu insisted. "Half of them looked terrified. We broke too many rules. We were too chaotic." Minyu leaned back in his chair, appearing relaxed though could see the tension in his shoulders. "We succeeded. That has to count for something." "Success through chaos is still chaos," said quietly, "and chaos is what they fear most." Watched a counselor stand and make what appeared to be an impassioned speech. She recognized the gestures. Aggressive, dismissive. He was arguing against them. The door opened and Commander Isa emerged. Her expression gave nothing away. "They're ready for you." The team stood and followed her into the council chambers. 23 counselors from as many species sat in a semicircle, their attention fixed on the 5 humans who walked to the center of the room. Felt very small suddenly, very aware of how young humanity was compared to these civilizations that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. The council chair, a dignified being whose species didn't recognize, spoke first. We have reviewed your performance in the field test. We have also reviewed testimony from your instructors, analysis from our military experts, and projections about what your integration into galactic forces would mean. He paused, and his heart hammered in her chest. The council is divided. Before we render our decision, we will hear arguments from both sides. Those opposed to human integration speak. The counselor stood. I am an representative of the Defense Collective. I speak in opposition to human military integration. He pulled up holographic footage of the simulation. This team violated 17 standard safety protocols. They split their forces in tactically unsound ways. They weaponized a reactor meltdown, something we specifically prohibit because of the danger it poses. He pointed at, this cadet was flagged as unclassified by our combat scanners. This means her fighting pattern does not match any known methodology. She cannot be predicted. None of the humans can. This makes them unreliable as allies and dangerous as soldiers. Another counselor stood, a crystalline being who shimmered as she spoke. I am Crystalline Aura. I support Counselor N's position. Our military operates on predictability and protocol. Each species has defined roles based on their natural abilities. Provide heavy assault, provide speed tactics, provide telepathic coordination. Humans have no defined role because they refuse to stay in any category. She displayed neural scans from testing. A human picks up a weapon and their brain processes it as dozens of different tools simultaneously. They improvise constantly. This is not adaptation. This is chaos. And chaos in military operations leads to catastrophic failures. A third counselor added his voice. Humanity's history is filled with warfare against their own species. They have a documented tendency toward violence and destruction. Allowing them into our military structures risks contaminating our cooperative defense philosophy with their aggressive instincts. Felt her jaw clench. She wanted to argue, to defend humanity, but Commander Issa had warned her to stay silent unless directly addressed. Those in favor of human integration speak, the council chair said. An elderly admiral stood, recognized her from the briefings. Admiral Torais, veteran of the frontier wars, holder of more combat decorations than any other living officer. I have fought in 47 major engagements, Torais said, her voice carrying despite her small stature. I have commanded mixed-species forces for 60 years, and I have watched recordings of this human team's performance 17 times now. She pulled up different footage showing standard operations by various species. Every species in this council has defined combat patterns. We study these patterns, we refine them, we perfect them. And because we perfect them, we become predictable. Our enemies learn our methods. They adapt to our tactics. They exploit our protocols. The footage shifted to show the human team. But these humans, they cannot be studied the same way because they don't repeat the same patterns. Every situation demands a new approach. They assess, they adapt, they improvise solutions we would never consider. Torais looked directly at the opposing counselors. You say they weaponized a reactor meltdown. Yes, they did. And because of that unconventional choice, they achieved 100% hostage survival. By our standard protocols, we would have evacuated and written those hostages off as acceptable losses. The humans refused to accept that loss. She paused, letting that sink in. You call them chaotic, I call them adaptive. You call them unpredictable, I call them innovative. You say they break protocols. I say they create new solutions when old protocols fail. A counselor stood to support Torais. I am counselor. I teach tactical analysis at the academy. I have reviewed this team's decision-making process. Every choice they made, while unconventional, was calculated based on available information and resources. They didn't act randomly. They acted creatively. He displayed a breakdown of the simulation. When faced with the reactor threat, standard protocol demanded evacuation. But Cadet Park recognized that evacuating meant accepting failure, so she asked a different question. Not how do we escape the danger, but how do we turn the danger into an advantage? That is not chaos. That is adaptive strategic thinking. More counselors spoke, arguments flying back and forth. The debate grew heated. Some praised the human team's innovation. Others insisted they were too dangerous to control. The council was genuinely divided. Finally, the council chair raised his hand for silence. We have heard sufficient testimony. However, there is one voice we have not heard, the humans themselves. He looked at Cadet Park. You triggered this entire situation by being flagged as unclassified. Tell this council in your own words. What does it mean to be human in a military context? Stood, her mouth suddenly dry. Every eye in the chamber was on her. I think being human means we don't accept limitations the same way other species do. When you give us a weapon designed for one purpose, we immediately start thinking about other purposes. When you tell us the mission is impossible, we start looking for the ways it might be possible anyway. She took a breath. Is that chaotic? Maybe. But it's also how humans survived on Earth. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest. We don't have natural weapons or armor. What we have is the ability to look at any situation and ask, what if we tried something different? And that makes you dangerous and interrupted. Maybe, agreed. But it also makes us survivors. You're right that we can't be classified. We don't fit in your boxes, but maybe that's okay. Maybe you need someone who doesn't fit the pattern. Someone who can find solutions when all the standard answers have failed. She looked at each counselor. We're not asking you to change how you operate. We're asking you to let us operate the way we operate. And when you face a situation where predictable tactics aren't working, where protocol has failed, where you need someone who thinks differently, that's when you call us. The chamber was quiet. Then Admiral Torai spoke again. I have a proposal. Don't integrate humans into standard military units. Create specialized teams, adaptive response units, small human teams deployed specifically when conventional approaches have failed. Give them autonomy to operate using their methods but keep them separate from regular forces. Counselor nodded. That could work. We maintain our standard operating procedures while having access to unconventional capabilities when needed. The debate resumed, but the tone had changed. They weren't arguing whether to accept humans anymore. They were arguing about how. 3 hours later, the council reached a decision. The chair stood. By a vote of 15-8, the Galactic Military Council accepts humanity into military programs with the following conditions. Human cadets will complete standard academy training. Upon graduation, they will form adaptive response units. These units will operate with increased autonomy, but will be deployed only in situations where standard tactics have proven insufficient. He looked at and her team. Your team will serve as the prototype. ARU-1. You will be watched closely. Your methods will be analyzed. Your success or failure will determine how we proceed with human integration. Do you accept these terms? Yes, said without hesitation. The others nodded agreement. Then this council is adjourned. The chamber emptied slowly, counselors still debating among themselves. Commander Issa approached the human team. Congratulations, you've changed the course of human-galactic relations. No pressure or anything, Wu muttered. Appeared beside Commander Issa. The instructor looked at with something that might have been respect. The scanner called you unclassified. I disagreed with that assessment at first. I thought it meant inferior, undisciplined. He paused. I was wrong. Unclassified doesn't mean inferior. It means you refuse to be limited by existing categories. You keep breaking the box to see what else it can be used for. Smiled. We call it thinking outside the box. We call it terrifying, replied. Welcome to the Galactic Military Cadets. Try not to break too many things. 6 months passed. ARU-1 completed their academy training and received their first real deployment, a hostage situation on a mining colony. Standard forces had attempted rescue and failed. The hostage takers were demanding impossible conditions and threatening to start killing captives. Stood in the transport ship with her team checking equipment one last time. The mission briefing had been clear. High risk, low probability of success, last resort option. Ready? She asked her team. Always, Minyu replied, hefting his heavy weapon. I've already spotted 3 ways to use the ventilation system they probably haven't considered, Wu said. I can probably talk down at least some of the hostage takers, added. And I can fly us out through holes in their defenses they don't know exist yet, finished. The transport approached the colony. Felt that familiar sensation, her brain already processing the situation, seeing possibilities others wouldn't consider, planning approaches that weren't in any manual. Her weapon scanner activated, running its automated classification check. The display flickered across her vision. Combat pattern unclassified. She grinned. 6 months ago, that designation had terrified her. Now it felt like a promise, a reminder that she wasn't limited by what others expected, that she could adapt, improvise, create solutions where others saw only obstacles. They'll never understand how humans fight, Wu said quietly, watching the same display on his own scanner. Thought about the council debates, about the fear and fascination in equal measure, about being the variable that didn't fit any equation. Good, she said. Where's the fun in being predictable? The transport docked with the colony. The mission clock started, and ARU-1 did what they did best. They improvised,